Welcome to the little discussion we're going to have on this book that you all purchased for The Real Story. And I hope you're getting a good overview of the Bible as a result of this book. It's an overview of exactly what the origins of our faith come from. And the book starts with the book of Genesis. And it speaks about creation and God's creation of the world. It's interesting to note that, and it points out in the book, that the earth or the world was built in 7 days. Now we know that that's probably not accurate from a scientific perspective, but you have to understand that the ancient world viewed literature much differently than we do today. We see the world as a textbook, something that's literal, where the ancient world looked at scripture, looked at literature a little bit differently. They used a more poetic expression to express a truth, that we know that God created the world. And as I mentioned, it says that he created the world in 7 days. In the ancient world, 7 days, or the number 7, signified perfection. So it's interesting to note that those 7 days were used to create God's perfection, to create the world in which we live. It's interesting to note that God created this world. And the question we need to ask ourselves today is, how are we living in that world? What kinds of things are we doing as we are stewards of this world? Are we perverting the nature in which we live with pollution or garbage? Look at our oceans. How are we treating God's creation? It's something that we need to examine as we read through the pages of Genesis and think about God's creation in the context of what is my relationship with nature and how am I appreciating nature. Moving on from the first chapter of Genesis, we hear about the great flood and how creation was destroyed, but God gave an opportunity for redemption, that God wanted us to start anew. We hear about Noah, who interestingly enough came from the line of Seth and his lineage. Back in the ancient world, where or the family that you came from was very important. And hence, that lineage was outlined in that chapter. But we also need to look at the flood and the opportunity that God gave Noah and his family, and the opportunity he gave us to redeem us. The next chapter that we discussed is chapter 3. And in chapter 3, we hear of Noah falling, much like Adam, in a vineyard, no less. It goes to show you how we use opportunities to our advantage. And we use the struggle of power over another person to take advantage of them. Sometimes we see that in politics, or even in our relationships with others, in businesses, in our homes. It's that imbalance between treating people with dignity and respect that we see in our society today. We need to be careful in those areas of our life where we are in a position of power over someone else, that we need to treat them with dignity and respect, the dignity and respect that God has for us and we should have for God. It's that imbalance in power that distorts human relationships and causes us to sin. And we'll see that time and time again throughout the Old Testament, where power imbalances take place and people take advantage of others. As we continue looking at the Old Testament and the origins of the Bible, we'll see again that power play between different groups of people, or maybe even different tribes. We have to look in at ourselves and see for ourselves, where are we taking advantage of someone else because of our position in our business, maybe in our homes, or maybe in our community, and how we need to look at others with the dignity and respect that they deserve.